Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined by Zane Simon for the UFC on Fight Night, UFC on Fox 15, Machida versus Rockhold, sixth round. No, this is not the sixth round of the fight. There weren't even 3 rounds of the fight. This is a post-fight analysis show, so don't give us any thumbs down for that. Zane, I'm too heartbroken from watching Lyoto Machida get destroyed by Luke Rockhold to really put together a complete sentence. Rescue me.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm happy because I said Luke Rockhold was gonna win, so I feel good about that. Like, I love Machida, I love him a lot, but I'm always happy to see the guard change. When you get a guy like Rockhold who's in the prime of his career, I want to see him win the big fight. Machida's been there. He's been champ. He's been around forever. Time for
And he's
somebody new
been
to step up.
he's been beaten by Chris Weidman too, and
Yeah.
there's no indication, especially from this fight, that he's got any answers for Chris Weidman. And Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman is a very intriguing match. So I got to agree with you there. Nonetheless, I hated to see Lyoto go out like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just
I mean, at least it was a tough fight, but yeah, it's the younger, bigger, faster, stronger kind of thing. Like that
yeah.
means so much in MMA where we want to talk about technique all the time and how it breaks down and oh well, this guy's a really great range striker and sometimes it's just well, this guy's younger and faster and bigger and stronger and he's also a pretty damn good fighter, you know.
He really is. Once he got on top of Machida, Machida had almost no chance. So although I'm still pissed because I want to rewatch it, but the initial takedown what seemed like a slip and a shove to me. I mean, amazing that a fight could turn on something like that so definitively. And it looks like
I,
an enormous thunderstorm is roaring in here right outside my window. So
yeah, I
what
don't
are you
know.
gonna
I
do?
mean, well, we're talking about your storm. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
I don't know
let me
what to
shut
tell
the
you
window
there.
before. Well,
I
not much we can do, but
Okay.
can you hear
Anyway, I
me?
don't know. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear you. I don't know what you're talking about. You're going on about this storm or something.
Well, there's an
Am I,
enormous storm rolling in. It's got nothing to do with anything. I just was, shocked and hurt by Machida getting taken down in what I thought was kind of a bullshit way. But Rockhold gave him no second chance. Machida couldn't get up. He couldn't reverse him. He tried some half guard play. He tried to roll him. Nothing worked. And the longer he was on his back, the longer he was on the bottom, the more of a beating he took. And I was hoping in the second round that Machida would have a second win, but he was clearly done after that first round beating.
yeah, he could barely make it back to his stool, and that's not even like a second win. It's not tired. He was just, almost unconscious basically, and that's a hard thing to
Yeah,
have a second win from.
yeah, there was no comeback from that. But what's this mean for Ronaldo Jacare Souza, who once again I think is coming up on the short end of the stick? Because coming out of this, Rockhold is clearly cussed into a title shot, or that's my assumption.
Yeah.
And Jacare, who deserves it just as much, didn't get to fight Yoel Romero, didn't get the big win. He quickly submitted Chris Camozzi, but Camozzi was a guy he's beaten before, who came in as a late substitute. That fight really added nothing to Jacare's resume. What bad luck, what bullshit for Jacare fans.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one way to look at it. The other way is that Jacare is probably an injury away from getting a title shot. Like anybody gets hurt at any time, anybody's schedules don't line up. Weidman wants to fight in like 2 months, and Rockhold suddenly is like has a rib injury and is out for a while. Jacare will get the shot. Like that's the position he's in.
Yeah, and how do you think the Jacare Yoel Romero fight would have gone anyway?
I have that's this card was full of tough fights to pick, and that would have been a ridiculously difficult one. A lot of me says that Jacare would have won it because he tends to be he's so aggressive everywhere. When he gets an advantage, he takes advantage of it. Whereas Romero's the kind of fighter who will be lazy, let fighters hang around, give up advantages, just kind of give away all sorts of position and time with this knowledge that, oh, I can turn it around and do whatever I want whenever I want. And Jacare is the kind of fighter that would have probably would have subbed him out for that kind of attitude. But the way Romero's been fighting lately too, I mean, he does have the ability to just turn a fight on any one punch.
Yeah, and it's incredibly difficult to take down. So hopefully we'll get to see that fight at some point. Hopefully we'll get to see Chris Weidman versus Vitor Belfort coming up fairly soon. And hopefully we'll see Rockhold versus Weidman for that title. But let's talk about the rest of the main card. Max Holloway demolished Cub Swanson. Best performance of Max Holloway's career, hands down.
Yeah, that was amazing. I picked Holloway to win that because I hoped to see him fight like this. I mean, Swanson's the kind of guy who's shown before that if you can pressure him and stay on him, you can break down his game. You can make him a less technical, more predictable fighter. And
Yeah.
Holloway's had shown the tools to do that, but he had to be like totally on point to win this fight, and he just, he schooled Swanson out there. It was beautiful.
He really did, and 2 bad losses for Swanson in a row. Got demolished by Frankie Edgar. Not demolished. I mean, by the end he was demolished, but he was ground down by Frankie Edgar. And so it's going to be tough to see where Swanson goes from here. But Holloway emerges as a bona fide contender in the featherweight division with this win. And so, although he's not somebody I see beating Jose Aldo or Conor McGregor for that matter, so just remains to be seen, what he can make of that. But how about Paige Van Zandt demolishing Felice Herrig? Just a sustained beatdown. Very impressive performance from the strawweight.
Yeah, I mean, she looked great. She looked like she should have. Herrig has always struggled when she faces top-tier athletes who can basically power through her technique, and that was exactly what Van Zandt was able to do. Van Zandt's still really raw technically, but she's an athletic level above 95% of her division, and Herrig's not in that top 5%.
No, and I don't think she ever will be. I mean, Herrig's just one of these gals that the strawweight division came to UFC just a little bit too late for her career window, although I don't know that she was ever going to be a title contender. And I think go ahead.
She's only been fighting for like 5 or 6 years now. I mean, we're kind of like Herrig's just entering her prime. She's, which makes her an old vet for women's MMA. But
yeah,
she's
I just think that the athletic level has increased so much, so fast in that division. She's 30 years old, and I saw her fight back in Virginia. It's been longer than 5 years. 2009, 6 years. So, yeah, I saw that first fight she had at the UWC in February in Fairfax, Virginia in 2009. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see her. I don't see her getting. She's peaked. That's what I'm trying to say. The woman has peaked. Paige Van Zandt is on the way up. I don't know that they're going to be. If it'll behoove them to rush her into a title shot, I don't think she's ready for the top of the division. But it'll be very interesting to see. I'm very curious to see if a star was born with her very impressive performance on Fox, though.
Yeah, I mean, she like the problem with that division is that even if she's not technically great, she's got the athletic ability to beat people that are more recognizable. Like, she might beat Jessica Penne, who's a much bigger, more established name. And that doesn't, and then that very top few, Claudia Gadelha, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk really alone, and then we have Moroz on the rise, and a couple other names just throwing their hat, a couple other names rising. Those fighters might beat Van Zandt handily, even.
Yeah, I think it would be a bad idea to rush her into that very top tier, but I think she can take almost anybody else in the top 10 of the division. And I think if they play their cards right, they could have a major star in that division with Van Zandt, but I think she's a year or two out from title contention.
Yeah, she might get the next shot just because right now they don't have anyone, with Gadelha being injured and Calderwood getting blown away. It's really like Van Zandt and Moroz, unless Jędrzejczyk just wants to sit on the sideline for a long time.
Yeah, I doubt she does. And I think Jędrzejczyk would teach Paige Van Zandt some painful and possibly scarring lessons at this point. Mm-hmm. So if I was Van Zandt's management, I would not let her anywhere near that fight for another 18 months. But I'm not, and so won't have the chance to do that. So let's run through the preliminary card. We'll start at the bottom, go all the way up. I have nothing to say about Chris Dempsey versus Eddie Gordon. I think it was the worst fight on the card by a long shot.
Yeah, it's a tough setback for a tough winner, recent tough winner in Gordon,
Yeah.
who a lot of people expected something out of. And he, a lot of people thought he got robbed in this fight. I don't. It was so ugly, and he looked so gassed and performed so poorly over the last half of it. I really can't make myself care. But it's just a big setback for, another tough winner, another guy that the UFC put a lot of chips on to be a consistent performer for them.
Yeah, and he was not. And then Diego Brandao defeated Jimmy Hedges, a doctor stoppage after the first round because of an exploded cauliflower ear. Not the worst ear explosion I've ever seen. I don't think it really merited stopping the fight.
Not by the usual UFC doctor stoppage standards. Doctor stoppages in the UFC are really rare. They usually tend to be very deep cuts down to the bone,
and above the eye, or
right above the eye.
And this ear thing was not going to cause him any difficulty in invisibility or anything else. So tough break for Jimmy Hedges, but I feel like Brandao was winning. No telling how the fight could have gone with 2 more rounds. So.
Yeah, Hedges just doesn't. He doesn't quite have the athletic ability to compete. He's really tricky and crafty, but same thing with Herrig Van Zant is even when Hedges was competing, Brandao could just kind of power out of stuff and end up on top and end up pushing him around.
Yeah, so good win for Diego Brandao. Tough break for Jimmy Hedges. A bad call for cauliflower ears everywhere. And Tim Means defeated George Sullivan by submission. Pretty impressive performance by Tim Means, but to me it was more like a unimpressive performance by George Sullivan, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, it's the first really well-developed UFC level striker that Sullivan has ever had to fight. And as such, it was a showcase that Sullivan doesn't have high-level striking skill. He's got power and he's got consistent output, and both those things will take him a long way. But every time he fights somebody like Means, who has a great chin and really has put together a nice technical arsenal, he's going to struggle.
Yeah. I mean, anybody can slip their head off the line of a jab, and he's way out of his depth. But good performance by Tim Means. I don't want to take anything away from him. Now, the first preliminary card on Fox, Aljamain Sterling, bantamweight, defeated Takeya Mizugaki. Now, this to me was a passing of the torch. Very impressive performance by Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge win for him. Even people picking him to win should be really impressed by this because Mizugaki's, he's a legit top 10 bantamweight. It showcases how stagnant the bantamweight division has been. That somebody like Mizugaki's been hanging out there so long, and that
since the WEC days.
Oh, yeah, and that Michael McDonald is still a ranked top 5 bantamweight with 2 years of inactivity. That division, the top of that division, is just incredibly stagnant. But Sterling getting a big win, that does a great job to boost him right into the top. And it's a great win. I mean, he looked fantastic, and he controlled Mizugaki throughout and hooked up the sub, and just good win all around.
Yeah, good performance, and you have to admit Aljamain Sterling is for real at this point. And then light heavyweight, John Volante beat Corey Anderson, 3rd round TKO. Second worst fight on the card. Not much fun to watch. Volante won, but I was not impressed.
I don't know. I didn't have any hate for the fight. It was back and forth.
There was some good action. They were throwing down. I can't take that away from them. But
it unfortunately, what it really does is it undercuts, like the fight right after it did. It undercut one of the few prospective talents for the UFC at light heavyweight. Anderson was another recent tough winner, same season as Eddie Gordon, I believe, and John Volante was the opponent he was supposed to, that's a beatable opponent right in front of him. It's
that's the guy he should have won.
Yeah. It's a horribly inconsistent fighter. Anderson had trouble with leg kicks all throughout the fight, but he was actually leading on the judges' scorecard and was really outboxing Volante, which I was impressed with. Like, I thought Anderson, had he not got knocked out, win or lose, I was like, well, Anderson's actually developing some striking. He can learn how to check leg kicks. 2 or 3 years from now, we could really be seeing him develop as a top 10 light heavyweight. Then he got knocked out. That's not a
Yeah.
good sign.
Back to the drawing board for Corey Anderson. Good win by Jean Volante, but that Jean Volante is not a guy with a big future ahead of him. No matter what you say. But then that brings us to light heavyweight Elvin St. Preux. Demolished Patrick Cummins with a big uppercut in the first round. I thought this was the most impressive performance by Elvin St. Preux. I've been pretty high on Patrick Cummins, a very tough wrestler. OSP managed to stay on his feet, and when he did get taken down, he got back up quickly, and the uppercut was a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, I had OSP all the way here. I actually would have been really shocked if Cummings had won it, just because watching his fight with Antonio Carlos Jr., his last bout, every second that fight was at range on the feet, Cummins was losing it handily.
That's true.
It was really Carlos Jr.'s willingness to continually wrestle with Cummins that gave that fight away. And, I mean, Cummins I don't know. He didn't fight enough early in his career, and it seems to have kind of stagnated his development. He's still, like, his career only started in earnest in 2012, so we could be a long way from seeing him in his prime. Still be like 3 or 4 years off seeing him like as a well-developed fighter, but OSP is at his peak. Like, he's the best he's gonna be.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of a mess, but he's got the accuracy and the timing to go with his ridiculous athleticism now, and he's winning fights he should these days.
Yeah. I don't see him winning a title shot, but as stagnant as that division is, I could see OSP getting a title shot. So we'll see about that. But lightweight Beneil Dariush demolished. He didn't demolish, but he utterly dominated Jim Miller in a really good grappling bout. And I was high on Dariush coming into this fight. I think Jim Miller was the win he needed to convince people this is a top tier lightweight.
Yeah, that was all like the Sterling win. That's a fantastic win for Dariush. Jim Miller's super legit. I thought Dariush would win too, or I thought he'd win that fight because I didn't think Miller could sub him, and that's really the only place Miller's been consistently dangerous. But it's still a huge win for Dariush and propels him way up the lightweight ladder really quickly.
Yeah. And it's good to see. We'll see if he's well-rounded enough, if he has the striking to hang with the top guys in the division, but a very impressive performance. Then I guess that's the card. Any final thoughts about Rockhold and Machida or Jacare title picture, middleweights?
No, I mean, it was just, I think overall it was a really great card. I mean, this is what happens when the UFC books a card without one debuting fighter on it. There wasn't one fighter on this card who hadn't been in the UFC before, and that shows. Like, when you put together a bunch of hot prospect talent against established vets, you tend to get a lot of good fights.
Yes, and they did, and even with the Yoel Romero injury at the very last training day, so that was a real bummer. I would love to have seen that fight, but cannot complain about this card one bit. Tons of entertainment, lots of submissions, a couple of knockouts, and a really impressive performance from Luke Rockhold in the main event. Really looking forward to seeing. I strongly suspect Chris Weidman is going to beat Vitor Belfort, and then. What do you think of the Weidman-Rockhold matchup?
It's tough. I think Weidman wins because he doesn't have this, like, Machida has been touted as a good grappler, but when he's tended to face really like aggressive, powerful grapplers, he's tended to lose those fights. I mean, like, John Jones, Weidman. Now,
Machida's good on top. Machida on his back has always been a pretty iffy proposition, and but Weidman to me is a much different animal than Machida. The inside punching game, the takedowns. I think he's got power. I don't see Rockhold muscling him around. The Rockhold's bigger, but I really like Weidman's chances. I don't see Rockhold getting that kicking game going against Weidman. But it should be a good match, and I look forward to seeing it. So Thanks, Saint Simon. And remember, give us a like on YouTube. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at TheZaneSimon, at KidNate. Read us on BloodyElbow.com. Eugene will have Knuckle Up on Monday. Although he was in the emergency room tonight, I'm not sure what that was about, but hopefully everything is fine with Eugene, and I'm sure he'll be able to do the show. Tom Grant will have Inside the Guard. We'll be back with the Care Don't Care preview for UFC 186, which is a card that a lot of people are already hating on. So we'll muddle through that, and then we'll have a vivisection and the whole bit. So thanks, Zane, and adios, MMA aficionados.